Halo Combat Evolved. What can I say about this game that already hasn't been said? This game has been critically acclaimed, it helped kickstart a massive franchise that is still ongoing to this very day, and the game is 20 years old. Like, that's crazy to think about. This game is also very famous for establishing many aspects of the first-person genre, and also had great gameplay for console and revolutionized console gameplay at that time. But the thing is, does Halo, even though it's 20 years old, does it hold up? I mean, it is the first in the series and everything, but does it hold up? Well, before I dive into my opinions more, let's jump into the plot a little bit. It's the year 2055. Humanity is on the brink of destruction after they've been fighting a war for 30 years against a religious organization called the Covenant. The Pillar of Autumn discovers a ring called Halo. You also meet you, the player, Master Chief, Petty Officer 117, or John. And you as a player also meet Cortana, an artificial AI with the secrets to Earth and many other things that cannot fall into Covenant hands. Eventually, after the ship has been bombarded by Covenant fire, you land on the ring called Halo. You fight Covenant forces all around the ring. You drive around, you help rescue Captain Keyes, and you eventually find the Halo control room. And then the story takes a left turn. You eventually find a horrifying discovery in the ring, the Flood. The Flood are an ancient parasite that can spread quickly and contaminate other bodies, and the Flood have been let out and broken out all over the ring. To find a solution, you meet with 343 Guilty Spark. After meeting with 343 Guilty Spark, you eventually make your way through the library, one of the worst levels in the game, to find the index, which is used to fire the Halo ring. You head back to the control room about to fire the ring until Cortana stops you. You make the horrifying discovery that Halo doesn't actually destroy the Flood, but the Flood's food. You. After finding this horrifying discovery, you eventually turn your back against 343 to stop him from firing the ring. After this, you head back to the Covenant ship to find Keyes, who's been consumed completely by the Flood itself. You get his access codes and head back to the now crashed Pillar of Autumn. To prevent the Flood outbreak from spreading even further, Chief overloads the fusion reactors using the codes and escapes the ship in a cool Warthog run and a sleek fighter jet, eventually flying just out of the nick of time before the Halo ring has been destroyed. So that was the plot of Halo Combat Evolve. Now, for me, does this game still hold up? Hell yeah! I think personally speaking, Halo Combat Evolve straight out has a great campaign. There's a lot of things about the Halo story, at least in this one, that I really enjoy. There's also has great AI, a great weapon system, a great console gameplay, and it also just had simply good control. This game cannot be denied how important it is. It was a great introduction to a huge, massive universe that pushed the boundaries of gaming itself. One thing in particular I love about the Halo campaign is the sense of mystery in Halo 1. Not everything in the game is exactly told to you. This game basically only really cares about establishing the events and characters. It doesn't exactly work on developing things, at least for now, which is perfectly fine for Halo 1, since Halo 1 is only the introduction to the series. It doesn't necessarily need to give development to these characters as much because it needs to focus on introducing them correctly instead of developing them. And that's what the later games eventually did as a result anyway. Halo 1 also does a great job of establishing characters, the world, and the setting and what's at stake in the video game. It doesn't waste your time or tries to overdevelop things. It just gets straight to the point, which I really like about Halo. Halo 1 also reminds me a little bit of Star Wars A New Hope. Both start out with a bang, both have a plot device that kills millions, and other things that also have a hero's journey and so on. And I always thought that was a funny comparison, but both work really well. Both games throw you in the action and immediately establish who's the bad guy and who's the good guy in situations, which I really like about Halo 1's story. Also, Chief and Cortana in this game are also great partners, and they have some great commentary, and also some of the jokes are just hilarious.
This thing is falling apart!
It'll hold.
We're not gonna make it!
We'll make it.
Pull up! Pull up! You did that on purpose, didn't you? Oh, I see. The coordinate data needs to be... Right. Sorry.
I also love how in Halo 1 the story steadily adds new elements and keeps characters switching sides on and again and again. For example, like I said, the introduction of the Flood are pretty awesome in the game and add a third element to the story. Also, the introduction of the Monitor and his forces of the game, originally being on your side, but then switching sides at the very end to fight against you because in their eyes, their version of stopping the Flood is different from yours. And I really like that sort of different perspectives and different elements added to the story of Halo. It adds complexity to the characters and just makes the world feel a little bit more realistic than just a simple good versus bad scenario. On the gameplay side itself, for a 20-year-old game, I think this game pretty much holds up extremely well. For one thing, the levels are all pretty awesome. They're all pretty open, they're all pretty wide, and have plenty of room for combat. And it's not extremely linear as also. Like, there are plenty of levels where you can sort of diverge paths or do things on your own. For example, the famous Cartographer level, where you're driving around a Warthog and you can drive around the island and do objectives all in your own order. There's no linear path to necessarily follow, which is all pretty awesome. With the exception of a few levels and a lot of copy-paste rooms, which I'll get into in my cons of the game, I think all the levels are pretty awesome. They're free and they're open and they're great. Also, the fact that this game only has 2 weapons for you to choose from simplifies the gameplay to its very basics and allows for gameplay that's pretty awesome and pretty fluid to this day. You don't have to worry about searching through tons of guns to get the gun that you want and distracts from combat. You just simply flip to another gun and use that one. And it's very simple, but yet it works extremely well and it's well balanced. And I don't think many other games have accomplished this as much as Halo does, in my opinion. Also, I can't make a Halo review without mentioning the iconic soundtrack that Halo is. Halo's soundtrack in this game is absolutely amazing. All the songs and all the themes in this game fit perfectly with the tone and the mood of each level in this game. And it really helps to make the gameplay awesome and feel just epic. Especially the theme of Halo. The theme of Halo is so iconic, it represents the entire franchise. Once you hear the Halo theme, you immediately know what kind of game this is. And it's freaking awesome. It's an iconic soundtrack and it's excellent and it fits perfectly with the video game. Not many other games have iconic themes like Halo, but we're lucky because Halo has that theme. Overall, the soundtrack is absolutely amazing in this game. Another quick positive about Halo 1 I love is the design of things. I love the design of the ships, I love the design of your Spartan armor, I love the design of Cortana, I love the design of the Flood, the Covenant, and the Halo ring itself. It all looks pretty well in my opinion. Maybe some of the designs are a little outdated, but for the most part, I think the design and aesthetic of this game is pretty damn awesome. Also, another thing I like about this game that was added later on in the MCC version of the video game was the terminals. The terminals do a great job of fleshing out the Halo 1 story by expanding more on 343's point of view of the series of events. It also helps fix some plot holes, and it has also a really cool keys terminal as well. So that was the pros to Halo 1. But like anything in life, nothing is perfect, and I do think that there are indeed cons to Halo 1. Like many people said, the game has way too many copy and paste levels, which were fixed on in the later games, but in Halo 1 this is really just an issue. So many of the Forerunner rooms that you walk into are just copy and paste and they're the same layout and the same design again and again and again. And honestly it can get pretty tedious. This is especially including the library level. If you've heard of any Halo 1 reviews, you've probably heard them mention the library level at some point. This is an infamous level in Halo 1 and it is really bad. It is really bad. You're constantly fighting Flood in a dark room, which are all copy and paste similar designs, and you constantly have to wait on this dumb monitor to open up the room to get the index of the Halo ring, and it's really annoying. You do this for about at least 10 minutes in the level, and it is completely awful and just so tedious. But still, I have to mention it since it's the library level. Also, other cons of the game include the rocket launcher Flood. I would say pretty much all the other AI in the game is very well balanced, except the rocket launcher Flood, because fuck the rocket launcher Flood. Overall, after 20 years, I think Halo Combat Evolved still holds up very well to this day. I think Halo Combat Evolved, with the combination of having a very solid story, a very solid campaign, very solid characters, very solid enemies, very fun and exciting gameplay, But as I said before, the game isn't perfect and has some minor flaws, but I think after 20 years, it still holds up very remarkably well. The theme is amazing in this game. Like I said before, the campaign is great, and it honestly kicked off one of the biggest franchises in history with video games, and that was the Halo series. And I have to give it mad props and respects for being the first one and laying the foundations for the other games to follow. So yeah, Halo 1 is still an awesome game. If you've never played Halo 1, I would highly recommend it and revisit it. Just because it's 20 years old doesn't necessarily mean it's not necessarily fun to play, because that's not true. It is very fun to play. And overall, if I had to give it a rating, I'll probably get 4 out of 5 Jackal Snipers. It is very good.